So the main purpose of this keyword is nothing but this one. This is used to refer the instance variables and instance data. This is one main advantage of this keyword. And second thing is nothing but this can be sent as an argument for a method or for constructor. This can be sent what? As an argument for a method or constructor. These are the two main advantages of this keyword. Let's try to understand the first thing. This is a keyword, okay, or reference variable, which is used to refer the current class. Okay, fine. These two are the theoretical definitions. Next, if you see this statement, this is used to refer the instance variables and instance data. Meaning, what is the meaning of this statement? Which is used to refer the instance variables and instance data. Where you'll get this requirement of using this keyword. Let's try to understand. Let's try to understand. I'm starting this virtual box, writing a program. So let's try to understand programmatically that statement. This is a keyword, a reference variable, which is used to refer the current class. And this is a main statement. This is used to refer what? The instance variables and instance data. Let's see here, what is the meaning of this statement? What is the meaning of this particular statement? Assume that I'm creating a class I'm creating a Java class I'm creating. Let's take, I'm specifying the class name as student is a class name. What is a class? We're creating a class we are creating called, what is the class name? Student is the class. What is the class name? Student is a class. So can I know what is the data? What is the data in the student class? Basically what student class contains? Let's take every student will have some ID. If you join in any institute or college, they're going to give some ID they're going to give, correct or not? So every student will have a student ID. Next, every student will have a name. Let's take string, let's take name I specified. And every student will have some age. Every student will have some age. Next, every student will have some gender, like male or female, like these are the details. Just assume that. Assume that these are the details of a student. Like what is the codes and what is the section. Like if you want, you can give a number of data, but these are main data I configured. One is ID, name, age, and gender. Okay, got it right? So in this class, student class, assume that I'm creating a constructor I'm creating here. In this student class, I'm creating a constructor I'm creating here. This particular constructor will take these parameters as input. One thing is it is taking the ID as input. One more thing is it is taking the string as input, name. And one more thing is taking the age as input. One more thing is taking what? Age as input. And one more thing is taking the gender as input. Imagine I created a constructor I created. I created what? A constructor I created. I hope you remembered what exactly constructor means. So if you create a block, if you create with the same class name what we configured, that is called as what? Constructor. Correct or not? So if you want to create the object for this constructor class, if you create the object for this student class, if you want to create the object, we had to send 4 parameters we had to send for this constructor. What are the 4 parameters? First thing is we had to send the ID we had to give. Second thing is we had to configure the name. Third thing is we had to configure the age we had to configure. Fourth thing is what? We had to configure the gender we had to configure. So these 4 things we had to send for creating the object for this student class. Okay, let's see here what will happen. Here, let's create the object for this student class. But if you want to create the object for student class, if you want to create the object, I told you, right? We have to send these 4 parameters as input we have to send. So let's create the object for student class. Student S is equals to new student is the class name. Student S is equals to what? New student. Let's configure these details. What is the ID? 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, 4 is the ID I configured. What is the name? I configured the name as Mahesh is the name I configured. And what is the age? I configured some age I configured here. And what is the gender? I configured the gender I configured as male is the gender I configured. So these are the details we have to configure. So we create an object for student class, we create an object. And we know that the student class constructor is taking these 4 things as input: ID, name, age, and gender. So while you are creating the object, I send what is the student ID, what is the student name, what is the student gender. So these details I'm sending here. Okay. Let's say the program. What is the class name is specified? Student. What is the class name is specified? Student.java is the class name. I'm saving the class name called student.java. Okay, you create an object for student class, you create an object, you return the statement. Student S is equals to new student of, meaning in this particular case, it's going to call the constructor will be called. The student class constructor is going to be called. For this student class constructor, it is receiving here 2, 3, 4 ID, name, age, and gender. The constructor is receiving these 4 details. And what I'm doing is in this constructor, I'm writing here ID is equals to ID, ID is equals to ID, name is equals to name, age is equals to age. Just I'm storing the details I'm storing here. Gender is equals to gender, like that I configured. Meaning in my view, what I'm thinking is, we are sending this 2, 3, 4 name, age, and gender. These details 2, 3, 4 Mahesh 27 male. We are sending these details. We are sending to student class constructor. Student class constructor. We are sending these details 2, 3, 4 name, 27 and male. These details we are sending to our student class constructor. We are sending these details. Okay. From here, student class constructor, what we are doing is, meaning I'm thinking in this way. It is receiving these details, ID, name, age, and gender. It is storing the data into these variables. It is storing the data into instance variables. It is storing the data. Okay, let's see the output now. Okay, as per our understanding up to now, 1, 2, 3, 4, we are sending the data to this constructor. Constructor will receive that one. That data we are storing into what? Into global variable or instance variable. We are storing the data, and we are sending Mahesh. We are sending. So name is going to receive that one, and that name we are storing into name. I mean, we are thinking we are storing that name value. We are storing into global variable. I'm storing this name. Like that we are thinking. Let's see the output now. What is the output you are going to get? System.out.println. System.out.println. When you write yes.sid, student ID, SID or ID, you configure ID. Yes.id. Next, when you call yes.name, sorry. Copy it. When you call s.name, s dot, configuring here s dot, s.id, s.name, s.age, and s.gender. S dot what? Gender. So let's see, as per our expectation, what is the output it has to show? It has to show the output as what? 2, 3, 4. We are sending the argument to a constructor. Constructor is receiving that 2, 3, 4. This 2, 3, 4 will receive here, and this 2, 3, 4 data we stored into this global variable we stored here. Instance variable is stored. So we are sending the name we are sending as Mahesh. The constructor is going to receive that name as Mahesh. That name is going to be stored into this global variable or the instance variable. The data is going to be stored. So we are thinking in that way, and where we got the output we got here. What is the name, ID, age, and gender? We got the details we got. Let's say the program. Let's say the program. Go to command prompt. Go to command prompt. Let's see here where you saved this particular Java program. Go to command prompt and see where you saved this Java program. We saved this Java program. We saved in the C drive Java 9:30 p.m. C drive Java 9:30 p.m. Student.java is a class. What is the class name? Student.java is a class. Let's compile it. First exit from this Mahesh folder. C double dot enter. Exit from users. First exit from Mahesh. Next after that exit from users. Then after that move to a particular location. CD space Java 9:30 p.m. is a folder name. What is the folder name? Java 9:30 p.m. is a folder. Now we are in C drive Java 9:30 p.m. In this folder we create a file we created called student.java is a class. Let's compile that class called student.java. Java C student.java. Let's compile the class called student.java. Next after that run the student program. Java, what is the class name? Student is a class. Java space student. Click on enter. See what is the output you got. You're going to get the output as 0, null, 0, null we got. And why we got this 0, null, 0, null? We store the data we stored, right? We send this 233 we sent here. 234 we sent to ID. Name we sent as a Mahesh. Age we sent. Gender we sent. These details we sent to a constructor. Constructor is sent these details to the instance variables. And why we got the values as 0, 0, 0 for ID, null we got for name, again 0 for age, and null we got for gender we got. Meaning why we got these default values? Why we got the default values? So here, let's try to understand here. If local variable names and instance variable names both are same, when you call this s.id, s.name, s.age, and s.gender, it is getting the details from the instance variables, correct or not? Whenever you create an object, so we are calling these variables we are calling here. Instance variables we are calling. Okay, but you are sending this data you are sending, right? 234 Mahesh 27 male. You are sending this data you are sending. The data is going to be received by whom? The constructor. Constructor is going to receive these details. The constructor is having these parameters as input, right? These are called as local variables. These variables are called as what? It's a local variables. If you recall our initial classes, local variables is going to be stored where? In the stack. In the stack memory, local variables is going to be stored. Where the instance variables will be created? In the heap, instance variables will be created in the heap. So now here, there are two variables with the same name. The local variable names and the global variable names. I mean, the instance variable names are both are same. To represent, it's an instance variable, not as a global, not as a local variable. Will configure as this will configure. See here, I'm specifying this dot id is equals to id, meaning we are specifying here store this local variable value into instance variable. Store this local variable value into what? Into instance variable, and I'm configuring here this dot name is equals to name. Next, this dot age is equals to age, and this dot gender is equals to gender. Okay, so now here, whenever you use this, whenever you use a keyword called this, always it represents to what? Instance variable. Always it represents to what? Instance variables. So this dot id means nothing but it is representing the instance variable. So now here what will happen is constructor is going to receive this 234 constructor will be received. The 234 value we are storing into where? We are not storing into, if we don't write this dot id is equals to this dot id is equals to id we configured, meaning we are receiving the data and we are storing the data into local variable only we are storing the data. We are receiving the data and we are storing the data into what? Into Local variable only we are storing the data. But whenever you configure this dot id is equals to id, the constructor will receive that number. Constructor will receive that number, and that number we are storing into instance variable. We are storing that value. That particular value we are storing into what? Into instance variable. We are storing that value. We are storing into instance variable. Okay. So we are calling here. Now see the output. You are going to get the values you are going to get. Now compile and run the program. Java C student.java and Java student. Now see here, we got 234, we got Mahesh, we got 27, and male we got 234, Mahesh 27, and male we got. Okay, so this keyword always represents the instance variable, especially here in this particular case you will get a requirement, because once if you start working with any project, in n number of places you will find this statement. You should not be surprised. What is this? Okay, if local variable and instance variable, both variable names are same, to represent this variable is an instance variable, not as a local variable, we are going to specify that one by using what? This. Meaning what we are doing is this local variable value we are storing into where? Into instance variable we are storing. The local variable value we are storing into what? Into instance variable we are storing that value we are storing. Okay. So I hope you understand, right? Understand, right? Again, if you want, I'll tell you once again the definition. If local variable and the instant variable names, the both variable names are same, to represent this particular variable is an instance variable, not as a global variable. We will represent by using what? This will represent. This will represent. So understand, right? Okay. This is one thing you have to understand. This is one thing you have to understand. Second thing is nothing but this can be sent as an argument for a constructor or for method. This can be sent what? As an argument for a constructor or for method. This can be sent as an argument or this can be sent as an argument for a constructor or for method. What is the meaning of this statement? What is the meaning of this statement? This can be sent as an argument for a constructor or for method. Let's take very simple example. Let's say very simple example. We'll see first without this keyword or object, what is the syntax? Then after that, how can we replace that code? How can we replace that code with this modifier? How can we replace the code? Let's see now. Okay. So clearly read the statement again. This can be sent as an argument for constructor or for method. Okay. So before going to understand this statement, just give me confirmation whether you understand this particular concept or not. What is a required? One of the requirement of this is what? The local variable names and the global instance variable names both are same. By using this will represent the instance variable we will represent. Yeah. So let's try to understand this can be sent as what? As an argument for a constructor or for method. Let's take first thing without this concept how the approach is. Okay. Let's take very simple example. Let's take very simple example. For example, next month, my marriage is there in next month. Just I'm telling an example. I'm telling here. Let's take for example. Let's assume that Naresh IT only, the owner for Naresh IT. Let's take I'm specifying his name called Naresh. The owner for Naresh IT. Let's take what is the name? Naresh sir, for example. My requirement is I want to give the invitation to him. Naresh sir class. It's a class called Naresh sir. Is a class. In this class, I'm creating a method I'm creating here. Which is for invitation. Let's say for example, I want to invite this person for my marriage. I want to invite. Let's say I'm creating a method I'm creating here. Public void. Let's take for example, this Naresh sir is receiving the invitation. What he's doing, he's receiving the invitation. There is a method called receive invitation is a method. What is the method name? Receive invitation is a method. I'm creating a class I'm creating called Naresh sir is a class. Naresh sir is a class I created. And I am here there is a method called what? Receive invitation is a method. So anyone can invite this particular person, anyone can invite. Okay. What is the class name? Naresh. Naresh sir is a class I specified. What is the class name? Naresh sir is a class I specified. I create a method called what? Receive invitation is a method. Okay, fine. I'm creating one more class I'm creating. One more class I'm creating called Java class. One more Java class I created called invitation is a class. What is the class name? Invitation is a class. As of now, only I'm saying the program name as invitation.java. My requirement is I want to invite this Naresh sir. I want to invite for my function. I want to invite the Naresh sir. I want to invite. Okay. Let's say, for example, the Naresh sir is a class, right? We know that execution of a program is going to start with main method. Execution of a program is going to start with main method. In this main method, let's say, for example, I want to call that method. I want to call receive notification is a method I want to call. In which class? Naresh sir class. I want to call this receive invitation method I want to call. Okay, it's an instance method. It's an instance method in the Naresh sir class. So we had to create the object for that class. We had to create the object Naresh sir is equals to new Naresh sir. Because it's an instance, it's having some instance method, right? So we require this instance variable is required. Instance variable is required for calling that instance method. So now you can call Naresh sir object dot. You can call this Naresh sir object dot. What is the method name? Receive. Receive notification is a method. So Naresh sir object dot. Naresh sir object dot. What is the method name? Receive notification. Receive invitation. Sorry, not notification. Receive what? Invitation. Receive invitation is the method we created. What is the method name? Receive invitation is a method. Receive invitation. If you want to, okay, you want to invite this person, you want to invite call Naresh, or you want to invite. So what is the input we had to give? We had to give some input we had to give for this class or not? For this input, for this method, receive invitation method, we had to give the input or not? Yes, we had to give the input we had to give. Let's see what is that input. Let's see what is the input. The input is nothing but, I'm specifying here, what is a bride name? Let's say, for example, is a bride name I configured. What is a bridegroom name? Let's say I configured the bridegroom name I configured. Let's take what is the date of the marriage. Let's say, for example, I configured some date I configured here. I configured some date I configured. So these three parameters. One is we are configuring the what is a bride name, what is a bridegroom name, what is the date of marriage. Let's say what is the time of marriage. I'm configuring some time I'm configuring here. I'm configuring some time I'm configuring here. And the next thing is I'm configuring one more thing called where, what is a venue, the location where the marriage is. Let's say, for example, I specified Karnal, I specified. Meaning, I want to invite this person, you want to invite Naresh sir, okay, fine. For inviting this person, what we are sending here? We are sending what is a bride name, what is a bridegroom name, what is a date, and what is a time, what is a time, and what is a venue. I mean, the place details. These are all we are sending as input. These are all we are sending as input to whom? We are sending all these things input to whom? To the receive invitation method. We are sending all these things. See, all are what kind of data? It's a string type of data, correct or not? So bridegroom name, date, time, venue details, everything we are sending the string type of data. So in the Naresh sir class, first we are understanding here. We're understanding without this or without object concept, how the approach is. In the receive notification method, in the receive invitation method, the first thing you should take the what is a bridegroom name, string, what is a bridegroom name? Then after that, what is a string? Let's take for example, what is a bridegroom name? What is a bridegroom name and string? Because all are we type as string type only. What is the date? What is the time? String, date, time, and what is the last one? Okay, the last thing is nothing but the venue. String, string venue. I configured the venue also. I configured here. Okay, date, time, and the venue. Date, time, and venue. Okay, so if you're calling this method, let's say if you're calling this method, we are calling right invitation method. Receive notification is a method in the narrator class. I'm calling this receive notification method. I'm calling here. For calling this method, we had to give all these details. We had to give as input. Okay, this narrator class receive notification method is receiving all these things. Invitation method will display these details. Will display. Let's say for example, system.out.println. I'm writing here system.out.println. System.out.println. Let's say what is the bride name? I mean the bride name. Let's copy paste. What is the bride name? Bridegroom name. So we're configuring all these details. We're configuring here. Bride name, bridegroom name, date, time, and venue. When is the date, time? What is the last one? Venue. I mean, what is the place details? We have to configure the venue. You have to configure. Let's say the program. We'll compile these two things. We'll compile these two things. One is invitation.java is one thing. In invitation class, we created the main method we created. One more thing is supporting class called what? Narrator is a class. Okay. Let's compile these two things. Let's compile these two things. I'm compiling the class called Java C narrator.java is one thing. Java C narrator.java and Java C. Java C, what is the class name? Invitation.java. Java C invitation.java. First thing is narrator.java and Java C invitation.java. And we created a main method. This is the method name is wrong. Receive invitation. Receive RECIVE invitation. RECIVE invitation. Okay, maybe parameters are different, I guess. Totally, it's taking how many parameters it's taking as input? Bride name, bridegroom name, date, time, venue. 5 things, right? How many things are sending here? Oh, we have to configure the date, time, venue. What is the last one? 5 parameters, right? Bridegroom name, B name, only bride name, bridegroom name, the date of the marriage, time, and venue. Plus, we are doing the same thing, right? 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. You're telling first compile about this invitation. Okay. Java C invitation.java. Something we did this mistake. Actual and formal arguments list is different. Total. Oh, got it, got it. Just we had to, after doing some changes, we had to save the program, right? Maybe I forgot to save the program. So we are getting the error we are getting. So I saved the program I saved after doing some modifications. I saved the program I saved. I use this Java C narrator.java, Java C invitation.java. So let me check it once again. Receive invitation is a method. Public void receive invitation is a method. Bride name, bridegroom name, date, time, and venue. Method is perfect. Class is also perfect. Now you said. Getting one more class called invitation is a class. A create object for null subclass. Receive invitation is a method. Now, why use extends property? For using this concept, extends is not required. So first, I'll remove this one. Delete. One is invitation.java is one thing. Class. So I remove that file I removed. We'll recompile the program again. So Java C invitation.java first. Java C is specified invitation.java. So no issues. Java C narrator.java. Where you create the main method in the invitation class, right? Java invitation. So we got Gautami, Mahesh, date we got, time we got, as well as venue also we got. So now here, of course, we can write the code. The program is not saved. There is a problem. We can write the code like this. Also, we can write the code, but it's not. It's a worse programming. Correct or not? Can anyone invite like this? Nowadays, can anyone invite anyone like this? For example, if I go and if I say, sir, bride name is Mahesh, bridegroom name is, for example, bride name is Gautami, bridegroom name is Mahesh, and this is a marriage date, this is a functional located, and this is the address. Like this, you are going to send the individual parameters, all these things. Just think with your common sense, the present market. Right now, are you going to invite like this, like that manner? You are going to invite, or simply you will go and you will give invitation card. Will give. Simply will give what? Will give an invitation card. Will give. Correct or not? We will give an invitation card. Will give. That's why earlier approach is nothing but we will send the individual parameters like that. We will send. There are one problem is there. Problem is nothing but let's take. It's very complex to remember all these parameters what we configure. Just for example, we configured 5 parameters. Let's say okay, in future you want to build an application for banking application. While you're filling a bank form, how many fields you will find here? For create account is a method, for example, it's taking around 30-40 fields it is taking. It's very easy for you to identify which particular field is not getting the data. That's why it's not recommend to specify the multiple parameters. If you have a requirement of only 1 or 2 parameters, then you can specify as a parameters. Like this 6, 7 or 7 parameters or 10 parameters, if you want to send, it's not recommend. First, it's not recommend to give these many parameters in the method declaration. Then what we had to do is, let's take whatever the data you want to transfer, this particular data will put into a class, this particular data will put into what? Into a class will put the data. Let's take here, I'm taking the string class, I'm taking here. What is a bride name? String bridegroom name. Let's take, I'm specifying the global variables. I mean the instance variables I'm specifying here. I'm specifying the instance variables I'm specifying here. What is a bride name, bridegroom name? Let's take what is next one. What is the next one? Place. What is the vicinity? I mean the location. Simply I'm configuring location, I'm configuring here. And what is the last one? What is the date, marriage date we configured? Next thing is nothing but string. String what? Time. So I configured the string details, I configured here. And in this string details only, we'll configure the names, we'll configure here. Here itself, I'm configuring the details. Meaning rather than sending the individual parameters, what I'm doing is, I'm creating a class called invitation is a class name. You understand, right? What is the first problem? If there are huge amount of parameters, then it's very, very difficult for you to give that all the parameters, and it's very difficult to identify if you get any particular issue if you send the parameters like this. That's why it's not recommended to send the parameters like this. If you have a requirement of sending any parameters, create the class object like this. Create a class and declare the data. I'm specifying some data I'm defining here. So what is the location? I specify the location as Karnool is the location I configured. So Karnool is the location I configured. And what is the date? I configured some date I configured here. I'm configuring some date I'm configuring here, 2017. Okay. So if you want, you can configure some time, you can configure here. I'm configuring the time I'm configuring here. 10:30 AM is the time I configure. Okay. So fine. Now we stored the data into this class. We stored the data. We stored the entire data. We stored into this class. We stored the entire data. Rather than sending the individual parameters, it's not a recommend approach. It's a worst way of writing the code. We should not spend the multiple parameters. We should not send. Then what we had to do is, whatever the data is there, so these are called as what? It's an instance variables, correct or not? When the memory and the weight the memory will be allocated for these instance variables, when and weight the memory will be allocated for these instance variable in the heap, JVM heap. The memory will be allocated for this instance variables and instance variables. So now here, rather than sending all these individual parameters, Gautami, Mahesh, 12, rather than sending all these individual parameters, we stored the entire data, we stored into the class object, we stored the entire data. Into this class, invitation class, we stored the entire data we stored. Rather than sending the individual parameters here, what I'm doing is, I'm creating the object for this class, I'm creating the object for this class, I'm creating the object called invitation is a class, is equals to new invitation is a class I specified. So invitation is equals to what? New invitation. Rather than sending all the individual parameters, we stored the entire data, we stored into this instance variables, we stored the entire data. So simply I'm configuring here, I'm specifying this object I specified, because once if you create the object, automatically it's going to allocate the memory for these things, it's going to allocate the memory. Okay. Let's see here. You understand what is the problem, right? I don't want to send the individual parameters as input. That's why what we are doing is, we create a class called invitation is a class. That invitation class contains all the details, like what is a bride name, bridegroom, place, when, at what time marriage is available. So each and everything you are going to get this invitation from. So it's recommend rather than sending the individual parameters, it's recommend to send this class object as a input. Class object as a input. But here, problem is nothing but, okay. Here in the narrator class also, don't specify all these individual parameters. Don't specify all these individual parameters. Instead of all these individual parameters, one of the input parameter for this, what is that one? Invitation. Invitation is one of the input parameters. That's it. Rather than sending the individual parameters, what we specified now here? We specified this invitation object as the input parameter is taken. Now these are the instance variables in which class? They are the instance variables. This name, gender, and all these things are the instance variables of which class? Invitation class. Of which class? Invitation class. So now we have to configure here, right? Use this invitation.bname, invitation dot side dot with. Let's say the program. Now output wise, will you get any difference? Let's see now. First, I'm compiling this narrator.java. Not, I think not venue. What we configured as? Location is the name we configured. What is the name we configured as what? Location is the name we configured. So configured as location. Now compile this narrator.java. Java C narrator.java. Java C. What is another one? We get a class called invitation.java is a class. We create a class called what? Invitation.java is a class. Okay. So Java invitation. Java invitation. See here we got the details we got. But this is the best approach. This is one of the best approach. Earlier one is the worst approach. We should not send the individual parameters like this. We should not send the individual parameters. We should not send the individual parameters. We should not send. So we had to put the data into instance variables. We had to put the data. Put the data into instance variable. We'll put the data, and that instance variable is going to be sent. Once if you create the object, automatically the instance variable will be create, and we are sending that object. We are sending, correct or not? We are sending this invitation object. We are sending as input to this narrator receive invitation method. Even without using this object also, meaning now what we are doing is we created an object we created for this particular class. We created an object we created for this particular class. That particular class object we are sending as the input to receive invitation method. One second. Observe here. So we are creating an object for this invitation class. We are creating an object, and that invitation class object we are sending as input parameter to receive invitation is a method. Now what I'm doing is I'm commenting the logic I'm commenting. I commented the logic I commented. I commented the logic I commented. Instead of using this particular statement, object creation and sending the object as input parameter to receive invitation method, can we use directly this? Because as per our definition, our understanding, and specifying this particular statement, directly what I'm sending is use this narrator class object dot. Here I have not specified any object, because what is the input parameter for this receive invitation method? The input parameter for this receive invitation method is nothing but class object, invitation class object as the input parameter for this receive invitation method. Okay. But instead of using this individual object, Is there any possibility to send this as input parameter? That's what I'm looking for. Anyway, we create an object we created, we send that object, the particular class also taking that object, and it's going to print the details. But now see here, I configured here the receive invitation. I configured this, I configured. If you configure this, you're going to get an error, you're going to get. Let's see what are the errors. Java C, narrator.java. Okay, first let's see, we got the error we got. See what is the error? This error cannot be resolved. That is, non-static variable this cannot be accessed inside the static context. Non-static variable this cannot be referred from a static context. Meaning, what is a statement we understand is nothing but here, this cannot be accessed inside constructor. This cannot be accessed. This cannot be accessed inside the. This cannot be accessed inside a static block. Let's take. This cannot be accessed inside the static block. We cannot access. This cannot be accessed inside a static block. So inside a static block, we cannot access that. Non-static variables we cannot access inside the static block. Okay, let's try to understand here. Okay, you specified this. You specified, meaning it's telling you it's giving an error. That is nothing but this keyword cannot be accessed inside the main method. This cannot be accessed. So this particular statement also in the Ranjit class. This particular statement also I'm giving in a comment on. I'm giving this particular class also. This particular class methods I'm giving as what? The comments I'm giving. So run in the, it not execute these statements, it not execute. Okay. So, but here, this particular statement is taking what? Which class object as input? Invitation class object it is taking as input. So earlier we created object for this invitation class and we sent the data. Successfully we got the output. But my requirement is I don't want to create the object like this. I don't want to create the object. Is equals to new invitation of. I want to use this. I want to use, instead of using this particular statement, invitation I is equals to new invitation. We can use this also, we can use. But the problem is nothing but this we cannot access inside the static method. We cannot access this. So what I'm doing is in this particular class, I'm creating a method. I'm creating here public void. I'm creating a method in this particular class. I'm creating a method public void. Method name is nothing but give invitation is a method. What is the method name? Give invitation is a method. So my intention is you have to understand what is the need of this keyword. Okay. So okay, rather than using this, rather than creating the object for this invitation class and sending the object, we are trying to use this. We are trying to use because this can be accessed in. Sorry. This is used for what? The current class instance, correct or not? That's what the definition we learned. So, but we cannot use this. We cannot use inside the static block. That's why I'm creating one more method. I'm creating here. One more method I'm creating in the invitation class. What is the method name is? Give invitation is a method we created. What is the method name? Give invitation is a method. In this give invitation method, I am creating the object for Naresh sir. I'm creating the object. Let's create the object for Naresh sir. We'll create the object. Let's create the object for Naresh sir. We'll create the object. And Naresh sir object. There is a method called, what is the method name? Receive notification is a method. Arraysort.receive notification is a method. For this receive notification method, I'm sending this, I'm giving as input. For this receive invitation method, I'm sending what? This I'm sending as the input parameter for that method. Okay. So earlier we got the, we separately create the object we create separately. Separately we create object for invitation class, we create object separately. But problem is nothing but So this cannot be, instead of using that separate object, you can use this we can use. Okay, but this cannot be accessed inside the main method. You cannot access. That's why we created a separate method. We created called give invitation is a method. Give invitation is a method. From that method, it is sending that class object. It is sending, meaning we are not sending here anything here. We configured this. We configured what this. That's it. Now observe here, and this is a program we are going to run. Invitation is a program we are going to run. There is a constructor called give invitation is one method, and there is a method called main method is a method. So we know that execution of a program is going to start with which method? Main method or this give information method? Main method. So how we'll call this invitation method give invitation? It's a method of activity class. I mean, it's a method of activity class. And how can we call this method? It's nothing but it's a act. So how can you call this? It's an instance method. It's an instance method. How will call the instance method into your class? By creating an object for this class. Let's take assume that I'm creating the object for this class. I'm creating the object called invitation is a class is equals to new invitation. Invitation is equals to what? Sorry, not invitation. Okay, wait. An invitation class will be an invitation class because we want to call this method. We want to call this method. We want to call give information. But if you want to call this method, what kind of method it is? It is an instance method. It is a instance method. So we had to create the object for this particular class and write id dot what is the method name? Give information is a method. Give information is a method. Let's say the program and compile and run the program and see the output. So Java C arraystar.java. First we'll compile this one, Java C invitation.java. So give information is a method. It's showing an error. Give invitation is a method. Give invitation is a method. Let's recompile the program. Java C arraystar.java and Java C invitation.java. Java invitation, because we created a main method. We created in this class only. We created a main method Java invitation. So we got the output we got. See what we seen is nothing but there is a concept called this. One purpose of using this keyword is nothing but if the local variables names and the instance variable names, both variable names are same. To represent the instance variable, not the global variable, use this keyword. That is the one purpose of using this. Second thing is nothing but this can be sent as an argument for a constructor or for a method. This can be sent as an input parameter, sent as an argument for a constructor or method. We seen the earlier approach before this which topic we call this. So let's see what is the approach. Approach is nothing but there is a class called narrator is a class. It's having a method called receive invitation is a method. The first approach is nothing but we'll tell all the individual details. We'll tell basically that's a worst programming. We should not specify all the individual details. Simply we'll specify all those details. We'll specify as a class. For example, narrator invitation is a class we specified. In this invitation class, we define all the data we defined. Okay, and for this, we know that execution of a program is going to start with main method. In the main method only directly you can create the object. In the main method only directly you can create the object for this narrator class. You can create the object and you can call that. You can call that particular method. You can call. But problem is nothing but Our requirement is we are discussing about this. Our requirement is we are discussing about this keyword. Okay, this keyword cannot be accessed inside the static context. Okay, your requirement is you want to call this narrator, for example, receive invitation method you want to call. But if you want to call this method, which class object is required? Invitation class object is required for calling this particular method. So that's why what we are doing is we cannot use this. We cannot use inside the static block. We cannot use this. That's why we create a separate method we created called give information. And it's what kind of method? It's a instance method. If we call this method, see, especially this particular statement you have to understand. For calling this narrator receive invitation method, which class object we had to give as input? Invitation class object we had to give as input. But we already configured here this. Okay, so let's try to understand where exactly will be requirement of using this keyword. One is the local variable names, the instance variable, both variable names are same. To represent the instance variable, we use this keyword. Second thing is nothing but what? This can be sent as an input parameter for a constructor or for method call. Just as of now, just I give an example, a sample example I given here. I hope you understand this one. Rather than sending the individual input parameters, we get only one class called invitation is a class. Okay, let's see here. You practice once. Maybe I'm repeating again, but you go and practice once. You'll understand. And in our tomorrow's class, we'll see the differences. We see about what exactly this and what is super and super off. Okay. The tomorrow session first we'll discuss about this off. Let's take hardly 5 minutes to understand what exactly this off, and then after that we'll start the discussion about this differences between this and super keyword difference. Also we'll see in the tomorrow class. Okay, so let me know if you have any queries in this program. Let me know if you have any queries. Okay, so let's try it your end. The most important thing is this and the difference between this and super keyword. Okay, so tomorrow we'll see the differences. We'll see in the tomorrow class. Tomorrow we'll see those differences, and we'll see what is the use of this of keyword we use in the tomorrow class. Okay, so okay then. Thank you guys. See you tomorrow. Thank you.